Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at puremtgo.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com. Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Arena Mythic Cast. This is episode 36. I'm your host Spencer, and I am joined by my co-host, COVID positive Mythic Mikaela.
Oh my gosh. Hello everyone.
So it's funny. I was going to start the show by talking about how we both have birthdays that sometimes fall on holidays and how annoying that can be. Yours obviously, when it lands on a Thursday, probably pretty often lands on Thanksgiving. Mine, when it lands on a Monday, actually usually lands on Memorial Day. Actually, always. If my birthday's on a Monday, it's on Memorial Day. I would assume yours is the same. If it's a Thursday, it's like always Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really, so that's how I was gonna open the show, but instead I opened up my screen and you were in front of a clown in a different room, and I was like, "What's happening?" And you were like, "Yeah, I've been alone for a week."
Yeah, would not recommend, in case anybody cares to know. But it's rampant out there, even when you best try to avoid it.
Well, I am glad that you are doing well enough to do the show this week, Mikaela, and I'm excited to talk to you. This is actually a topic that you picked this week. We're going to be talking about the Mythic grind, and I'm really excited about it. I just want to apologize to listeners up front. I actually am also sick. I sound worse than Mikaela does. My son and I both have like the common cold of some kind, and so if I'll try to mute myself, but if there's some like weird cuts during editing, it's just me cutting out coughs. So I apologize. With that being said, before we get too far, let's thank our sponsor over at puremtgo.com. The entire Constructive Criticism Network can be found over there, and if you are looking for awesome free Magic content, that is a great place to get it. And don't forget to check out their sponsor over at mtgotraders.com. I know a lot of people have been enjoying some of the Eternal formats on MTGO lately. I personally have not played MTGO in a while, but I know that the Eternal formats in there have been popping from what my Twitter feed says. So if you're looking for a really good way to buy online cards, MTGO Traders is actually a really amazing service that makes it really easy to buy digital Magic cards. So don't forget to check out our Discord. We have a two-way tie for our monthly contest that I think we'll announce the winner on next week, Mikaela. But we have, I believe it is Luke and Scotty. So two different people from last month's contest are in the lead right now. So yeah, it's exciting to see how people responded to Kaladesh. Man, I drafted Kaladesh again last night. It is really fun. And the format I think is a lot better than either Ether Revolt or Kaladesh was. So it's really fun to get to experience that again.
I keep running into the Gear Hulks in that format, and I'm not having fun.
Yeah, I lost to the Blue Gear Hulk the other day, and I was like, I don't know what they could possibly have here. Like, they're definitely dead. And then they flashed in Torrential Gear Hulk, and I was like, I am definitely dead after those attacks. Why is it a 5/6? It's so large.
Yeah, some of those cards are very real, and I definitely ended up tilt drafting Eldraine bot drafts, but did very well in those, so that's how I handle that situation.
Did you get a stream any limited on your birthday, or was it mostly Stardew Valley?
I did stream a little bit of limited on my birthday because Stardew Valley was crashing my computer.
That's too funny.
But then I played some WoW a little bit later too, in which also I decided to restart my computer after that, and then my computer wouldn't turn back on.
Oh my gosh.
It was yeah. Then I let it take a break. I gave it like 5 minutes to itself, and then we turned it back on, and it was all good.
That's too funny.
Um,
Well,
but yeah,
go ahead.
I did draft a little bit. I don't remember what I drafted. I think I did a little bit of a Zendikar draft, if I
Nice.
remember correctly.
Nice. We just want to quickly, before we get into the main topic, say that we are looking for Mythic guests again. One of the goals of this show is to highlight Mythic players or people within the Magic community that do well at events, and have them talk about their experiences. So we'll be pulling Mythic guests, both from those people who tweet their Mythic decks or whatever decks at us on Twitter, as well as from the Constructed Discord channel, where we have Mythic and ladder decks, or Mythic and Trophy deck Discord there from that channel. So if you want to be a guest on the show and talk about a deck that you really love, don't forget to do one of those things. With that being said, let's talk about getting Mythic, Mikaela. So, Mikaela, when we had our first meeting, this is like one of the first things that you wanted to talk about, and I was really excited to talk about it. What made you want to talk about this topic?
Like very early on when I came back to Magic, like getting to Mythic was like the thing, and I did it, and it was super awesome, and it felt super awesome, and it was like kind of something that I started just like letting define myself. And I think you see a lot of that out on social media, where people like put a lot of emphasis in getting to Mythic and everything, but at the end of the day, what does that really mean? And like, how do you handle it if you don't reach that goal for a month? Because it is a very time consuming process that sometimes it's not in the cards that month. So that's a little bit about why I want to talk about it, because I think there's a lot more that goes into it other than just like, oh, I'm just gonna play some Magic, climb the ladder, and reach Mythic every month, and life is gonna be great.
Yeah, and we'll probably get into this a little bit during the show, but I really love the idea of what you just said, which is kind of tying your worth to something something that doesn't really cost you anything but time. And I think that being real about what kind of time you have and how you want to spend your time in Magic will kind of be a focal point of this. What do you kind of hope that the listeners? Oh my gosh, I should have read what you wrote before I said what I just said. What do you hope the listeners learn from this episode?
Yeah, the time commitment, like I want people to really understand that, and and just know that we'll get into it later, but maybe you are someone who just doesn't have the time for this, and you're not hitting Mythic because you don't have skill or ability as a Magic player. There's other reasons. I'd like our listeners to take away some strategies for this. I don't think going and climbing the ladder isn't the same as like going and preparing for a tournament, in every single way.
Yeah, that was some A+ hosting. Make sure to lead your co-host. Don't. That was so bad. That's too funny. Yeah, I agree. I think that I was surprised how much I wanted to talk about on this topic, like for the number of talking points that we came up with. But let's start with a big question, because I actually get this question from people who first get into Arena a lot, which is, what does Mythic get you? And there are two different answers that I like to give. One, top 1200 gets you a PTQ invite, and two, some booster packs. Like, I think it's only like one or two more booster packs too. It's like
you forgot about the important number 3.
Clout. The tweet, the Clout tweet. The Clout tweet. I forgot about the Clout tweet. The Clout tweet also is it's probably the most valuable of all of them, if we're being honest. The Clout tweet. No, that's a good point. Am I missing another one?
That's all I can think of.
It's funny. I think that as we kind of highlight those, what all of those kind of mean to you and what their worth is really dependent on how much time and commitment you should put in to that grind.
Oh yeah, for sure. And for someone like me, that top 1200 is what matters the most to me. But that's something that definitely became very apparent to me, that there, again, all back to the time. There are months that I do not have the time to put that in, where even, making Mythic at a fairly efficient rate still isn't good enough to make top 1200 just with how many people are playing anymore and how many, just the number of games people are putting in. So, that's the most important piece of to me, but there's also some accepting that, I'm not going to be able to meet that piece of it every single time, at least in constructed.
Yeah. So, I have actually never made top 1200 in Mythic. In fact, I think the highest I was ever ranked was in like the 400s, and fell out of that just from decay. You know, Mikaela, I am shocked sometimes to hear how well you do on Arena, considering the time that you have to put in with your job, with streaming. It's really impressive to me. My job over the last 3 years has been extremely demanding. Plus, I have a kid. You also have a kid. I'm just amazed by you. And I think being real about what you value. I mean, for me, those last couple games to get Mythic are really fun for me. Like that, those last 2 ranks of Diamond where you're just about to reach that goal. That's really fun for me. But I'm the type of person that really doesn't like the Mythic grind. And our next topic is going to talk about ladder versus our current situation, which is SCG events. The current SCG events also get you that qualification to that PTQ. And so even though I'm Mythic this month, I have actually dedicated most of my time to practicing for SCG events and playing SCG events. Lost a couple of winning ins, 2 3-1s into 3 3s, but I enjoy it a lot more. It makes me happier. It has less stress for me, as it's an isolated time where I can tell my wife, hey, I'm going to sit down and play these 6 rounds. If I 4-2 or better, I get my PDQ invite, and I get to play a GP-like event on Sunday. And like for me, that is just much easier to fit into my life. And I think that people often need to be real with themselves about, okay, well, what's reasonable for you? And for some people, just spending an hour a night or 2 hours a night playing ladder might be that reasonable thing. What about you, Mikaela? What do you think about the current world of ladder versus SEG grind?
I think you hit the point there exactly with the, some people playing ladder a couple hours a night is what works for them, right? Because these SCG events, you have a qualifier that qualifies for essentially another qualifier in a way, right? If you do well enough, if you go 5-1 or better, you get the entered into the qualifier for next month. Is that correct?
It's 4-2 or better, but 5-1 gets you 1 bye for the Sunday event, and then 6-0 gets you 2 byes. And if you get 2 5-1s in one weekend, you get 2 byes also.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's it's great if you have this 6-hour time spot, 5-6 hour time slot to be able to set aside and play Magic, and then you can you're open that other day to set aside. I think those events have been going on 10 hours ish. Is that also correct? They're 9 rounds. Top 8.
My friends are gonna right. I have not played in one yet. I lost 3-1 last week and then lost 3-1 again this week. But I think that's accurate. I think that they've gone 9 to 10 hours.
Yeah. So with these events, you really need that block of time to be able to set aside.
Yeah,
so
it's like a GP weekend. You've got to have a GP weekend worth of time to set aside.
Yeah. And I keep looking at these because it's just okay, all I have to do is just go 4-2 in one of these events to qualify for the MCQ the next month, which at the end of the day is the thing that I want the most. But at the same time, it's also very hard for me to sit here and say, oh, I have these 6 hours, to set aside. Right. And also when my husband also plays Magic, so he also wants to be playing these things too. And so it's, from my end, it's more been let him play. I take over parenting duties in whatever time it doesn't overlap. nap time, and he's able to play them, and then I just focus on ladder because I do a little bit more limited, which is a little bit easier to get to top 1200 on ladder.
Yeah. I think that what we're highlighting here, and what I hope the listeners take away from this is that doing what works for you will both lead to you playing better Magic because you're happier, because you don't have these weird expectations on yourself, and put you in a more likely position to succeed.
Oh yeah. And it's also I also when I look at these SCG events, it's very easy for me to, as a streamer, it's very easy for me to go stream ladder play, right? If I make a dumb mistake because I'm too busy talking to chat and I lose, it's one game on ladder. If I do that during a tournament and I'm trying to stream a tournament, I do that, like that's one of my 6 games that I get to get these 4 wins in, and that's a little bit of a problem.
Right. What is the goal of Mythic for you? I mean, you kind of highlighted for you it's top 1200, and it's funny to me. It's like, it's actually just so that when I'm playing ladder, I'm playing against a certain caliber of player, so that when I'm going to, it hasn't worked out this year. It's actually why I've gotten Mythic so few times this year specifically, is there's no tournaments for me to go to, so there's not a reason for me to get Mythic to practice. But I was talking to a friend of the show, Mason Clark, about kind of the differences in tournament prep. And he was talking about how the actual reason he likes getting Mythic is that time that you get to play against other Mythic caliber players. And because we were debating which we prefer between laddering and the constructed event queues on Arena, because I prefer those. It's kind of similar to the SED things. It's the set amount of time where I can be like, hey, honey, I'm going to go do this thing. I'll see you in however long this thing takes. And it just fits into my day better than like an arbitrary amount of time in the ladder. And he made a really good case to, well, while the silver, gold, and platinum part of ladder are not always, I mean, honestly, they are worse decks and worse competition than just going to the event queues and playing an event. You play against far worse decks. And that was my argument. It was like, I don't want to go and, I only have X amount of time to play Magic. If more than half of that time is spent getting from gold to Mythic, half of that time is already taken up by just not great Magic. And he made the argument, well, if you get Mythic every month and you get it early, then all of your time is spent against really great competition. So that's kind of been, I actually have played probably more ladder this month than I typically do, just because of how early I was able to get Mythic.
Yeah, that totally seems like a very reasonable way to go about testing. It's not necessarily been my experience so I would say my experience is I feel like I've played against worse players in limited prior to Mythic than I have in constructed. So I do, in my experience, a lot of my, if I was like wanting to test and I hadn't reached Mythic or, really put the effort in that month much up to that point, I would still find that, a majority of the people who I'm playing against or being, I'm being paired against in the ladder queues are of reasonable skill and playing real decks. I swear I play against more not real decks in the percentages of Mythic than I do anywhere else on the ladder, even in gold. But, at the end of the day, my main goal with reaching Mythic is that qualification. And that's always going to be my goal with Magic, is to, get those qualifications for the biggest tournaments.
Awesome. I want to talk about micro goals really quick, especially when it comes to ladder play, because for me, I suffer pretty badly from anxiety, and so ladder play can really just like crush my soul personally. And I find something that is really helpful for me when I do decide to play ladder is focusing on like micro goals. So like, okay, I need to let's try and 4-1 to get this rank. Let's try and 4-1 to get this rank. Let's try and 4-1 to get this rank, rather than staring at your, you open up arena, you've come in at plat 4, or is that what you started at after Mythic? I think it is.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, now we're gonna get Mythic today. Like, for me, it's much easier to be like, okay, I'm going to be plat 2 at the end of the day, and focus that way. What about you? How do you kind of set micro goals, or do you use micro goals at all in any of this?
Oh my gosh, I think I'm completely the opposite of you in this. For me, if I am like trying to say like, oh hey, I'm at this point right now, I'm gonna hit diamond by the end of the day. Like, that is usually not a good way for me to approach things because sometimes like you go to a tournament, sometimes you're just gonna have those tournaments where you can't do anything right, or opponent just always has the answers, and you kind of have those days on ladder too. So I've found it like really demoralizing when I like set this goal for myself and it's just things aren't working out. Either like the deck that I was kind of like thinking about playing that day is just not working out with the current meta on ladder that day or whatever. It's so I find like usually when I do something like that, I like end up at the bottom of plat again, and it doesn't work out. So what I try to do is if I'll have time where I'm like, okay, I can play ladder tonight, and I will start playing. And if I just notice that I'm just having not a great night, or like maybe my play seems a little bit off, or maybe I am just like genuinely getting a little unlucky. The problem is when that happens, then the tilt starts happening, and then I start just having those like small little misplays that keep adding up. And I by doing that, I'm able to step away, not hurt my rank because of those mistakes I'm making, and then pick it up on another day where maybe it's working out a little bit better for me.
Yeah, I love how I don't know. I love how we both are having different approaches to Magic, especially considering, our often sometimes similar life situations. It really tells you that there's not a answer to how any individual should approach something. I was listening to it was constructive criticism. Allie Warfield was talking about um her top 8 that her really big top 8 that she just had, and talked about how validating it was for her because people always questioned her testing process and how it was so different than everybody else's, and how when she tried to do it other ways, it became Magic became a lot more frustrating. And I really resonated with me that like people would always discredit you if you didn't work the way that they thought you were supposed to work. And it's like, well, I'm me, not you. And I need to do what's right for me to put myself in my best position to win. And I hope the listeners do that too. I hope that they know that like if you're like Mikaela and you just need to play the games that you can play and take a break when things aren't going well and you're not in the mental state, do that. If you need a structured set amount of time to and some small goals to get you through, do that. Like there's not a right and wrong way to do things other than what is right and wrong for you personally.
I have to, everything you said there, I just totally have to agree with. And that even comes down to things like deck choices. Like if they're you might take the deck that's just like not the right, what other people would consider the right deck for the tournament. But if it's the deck that you're playing the best, then it was like the right choice for you. So it just, that thinking just, applies to so many different places in Magic. And,
Yeah.
But, also I would say, be open to trying, other ideas that people do have, and, but
Absolutely.
acknowledging that, but like you said, acknowledging that it might work for someone else, but it might not work for you, but it doesn't hurt to try.
Absolutely. What do you think that the Mythic grind does help you with in your life?
You know, I think it can be helpful to actually, as almost counterintuitive as it sounds, it can kind of actually help you with the mental aspect of Magic, and really learning when it's not, not your day in Magic, or it can definitely help you, maybe see the effects of being tilted in your games. And so I would say it helps you. It helps you with that mental aspect of keeping cool and keeping together, because it's so easy that if you're having a bad day in a tournament, you just 0-3 drop, and you just leave it there, and you don't really maybe bring to light those issues that maybe you were having in the game with that. But if you sit there and try to like push through it on ladder and those things keep happening, you actually kind of start to notice why it's happening.
I'm gonna open the curtain a little bit. So typically, if I'm playing ladder, it is to try a new deck that I have never tried before. So what I typically am doing is I'll play like 1 to 3 matches on ladder, and then before I load into like an event queue or something, so that if I want to make changes to the sideboard or the main deck, I have some experience before I make any of those changes uh, to the deck. And so my ladder, that's often why I end up like diamond instead of mythic. It's just the volume of games that I end up playing. I mean, sometimes I'll just end up platinum because I was platinum last season, started silver, ended up platinum again. But it's funny to me just like to hear the differences between the way that people use ladder and other people use ladder. Ladder to me is just a quick way to get games, whereas other people it's their main way to test. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I think it's helped with just the number of games of Magic that people are able to play.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like, you can queue up anytime you want to, and you're getting fairly good competition. For the most part. Like if you don't play Arena a lot, maybe not. But
are you gonna play on your phone when it comes? Are you gonna grind ladder in bed?
That's okay. There needs to be places where Magic is not. So maybe not. I don't know if I'm gonna be.
I can't fall asleep. There. Let's load up a draft.
Oh my gosh.
I'll do that. I promise that my drafting will go up substantially. When Hearthstone came to mobile, I played like an inappropriate amount of Hearthstone for how much I enjoy that game. Because I don't even like Hearthstone. Like, I like Dungeon Run, and that's it. And when it came to my phone, I just ended up playing a bunch of Hearthstone. So,
I will say, I've only played Eternal on my phone. But that's separate things. My phone games are for not having to be like super competitive.
Think about it. Think about this, Mikaela. Oh, a nice glass of wine, a bubble bath, and a draft on your waterproof phone. Let's go.
I could just get my laptop and like have like one of those like little trays.
What is the downside of the Mythic grind for you? I'll go first on this one. I have terrible ladder anxiety. I just have terrible anxiety in my life. And like ladder play sometimes really contributes to my anxiety. I don't know. There's something more frustrating to me about that instant number change than a set block. And it really is. I'm really trying to learn how to handle those type of emotions. But I think the ladder play has often had a negative impact on my mental health.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. Like, I've definitely put way too much pressure on myself to hit Mythic, and it's made me really miserable, which is, I'd say that's a pretty big downside when you're putting so much pressure on yourself to hit this, rank, and then you're just sad when you're supposed to be having fun playing a game. And so that's not great. I would say there is some limitation, like deck choices on the constructed side of things, right? Which can be a downside to it, because if you want to hit Mythic, it can kind of like be miserable to pick a control deck because it takes forever. Or, like if you want to go into the best of one, best of one queues and maybe just look at quicker games, you're kind of tied to a more limited deck choice just because between the hand smoother and, no sideboarding, the format just tends to be a little bit quicker and you might not be able to get away with your style of deck that you normally would.
Yeah, I really hate that ladder and tournament decks. Should we just talk about that really quick? Because
Why not?
that's our next talking point anyway. But so I think picking decks and switching decks on ladder is really difficult for me. And here's why: is one, I think that you are very rewarded for playing either hyper aggressive decks, large aggressive decks, so like green aggro decks, or very good aggro matchup decks, whether that's like control with a ton of removal spells and life gain, or mid-range slanted to beat aggro specifically. And for me, as somebody that is like a very classical mid-range player, that like, Jund is my go. Jund style decks and ramp style decks are like my favorites, and ladder, just like playing blue-white control, for example, which is like one of my favorite archetypes, like that's just a miserable ladder experience. You'll play for 4 hours and you'll go 3-1 and you're like, all right, well, got one rank today in 4 hours of play, where somebody else puts in 4 hours playing, Gruul or Mono Red, and they've gone up a whole, like they've gone from Diamond to Mythic already. And for me, like it means that I have ended up playing a lot more Gruul decks, a lot more Mono Red decks, which is a good thing. Like I actually was pretty bad at playing Mono Red specifically before Arena existed, and I would say that I am now competent at playing Mono Red. But man, it sucks to not just get to play any deck that you want because of the way that the system works.
Oh yeah, like it already takes a lot of time playing quick to normal pace decks, and then if you try to keep up blue-eye control, like you said, you're 3-1 after 4 hours, and not really having moved up a whole bunch. So yeah, that makes things like super interesting. And then it's like, you're always responding to the ladder meta too, especially once you hit Mythic. And that can get like almost frustrating because it's just like you'll just run into the same deck over and over and over and over again. And
I find that starts in Diamond for what it's worth. Like I'll log in at, like I'll go from Plat to Diamond, and all of a sudden I'll play like 5 of the same deck. I'm like, holy crap, guys! Are we all listening to the same podcast and reading the same articles this week? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it happens so much, and yeah, it's. I'm trying to figure out like what words I want to say here.
No, you're good. I think that the reverse is also true though. Like I am more than happy. Like we talked about SCG events earlier. Mm-hmm. I'm totally fine bringing a blue-eye control deck to like an SCG event, because we have the set timer. I have the set expectations of the things that I'm going to go do, and I'm able to do that. And it just means that you're going to run into pretty different decks in an SCG event than you might on ladder, or depending on the player that you're playing against, if all they do is play ladder, they're going to expect the ladder metagame. It's a very weird. What's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say push and pull, but that might not be it.
Yeah.
Either way,
I'd like to point out that too. That I think ladder and tournament decks are probably going to start looking a lot different. Because for one main reason, and that's since we're in this online tournament world where open deck list is just the norm out of necessity now. You don't have open deck lists in ladder. You don't know what you're sitting down, across from, and so I think your sideboards are going to be a little bit more able to adapt to anything, and you might have like more surprise cards where as opposed to a tournament deck with like you're just going to be like efficiently prepared for the top 4 or 5 decks, have other archetypes in mind, and you're not going to be trying to get like too overly cute with that sideboard because of your opponent's already going to have the knowledge of like what's in there. So that's something that's very interesting to take into consideration.
What do you? We kind of touched on the ladder anxiety and stuff like that. Is there anything else that you think either helps or hurts you mentally with the Mythic grind? Like, is there a mental side that people might be better off focusing on than maybe the the feelings that they get? Like, I think for me, I kind of mentioned this, but having for me like that having a goal, right? Whether it's okay, I'm going to play 3 matches with this deck before I jump into an event with it. What are my goals going into this session of ladder is really helpful to distract me from that. But is there anything that you would say mentally that people should be aware of during their Mythic grind?
Well, I think having your goals for the season, understanding your own personal goals for the season is very important. It's going to dictate how much you need to be playing ladder. If you're someone who's just at the point of, if I hit Mythic, cool. If I don't hit Mythic, also cool. Then you don't really have anything to like worry about as far as that. You can log on, you can play, and I think maybe like you lose some of that. I would personally, or when I personally do that, I lose some of that like mental stress. From the from the grind of trying to get Mythic. But I would say just reminding yourself that this is not, if you're someone who's busy and you aren't necessarily able to log onto Magic every night, like I don't know, maybe you're not, maybe some weeks you don't play Magic. I certainly do that quite often. Just being okay with that and just knowing it doesn't define your worth as a Magic player. I know plenty of talented Magic players who just do not find success on ladder. They don't enjoy it. They don't enjoy playing it, but they can prepare for tournaments and they end up doing well.
The MPL streams, for what it's worth, and most of them are usually platinum. So, like, know that you don't have to be a ladder grinder to be one of the actual best Magic players in the world.
And also, there's some tools out there where you're able to go and like look at the stats of people on ladder if they've opted in to doing so. And I've had a chance to I'll go look at those out of curiosity sometimes, and I'll see people who have more matches in a month than I have had in probably the last 6. Oh, yeah. And that actually that has when you play that many matches, you're going to hit Mythic. It's just with how the statistics of ranking up work. You don't actually have to be over a 50% win rate to hit Mythic.
Fun fact: my ladder percentage as of last night was I think it was 49%. So, like, which is frustrating, but that is what it was last night.
One time I had a 70% win percent 1 month, but I didn't play very much. But I was just very efficient. I knew my deck well. This was back in the Just Guy Luca days. And, I was very happy with it. And so, I didn't get to play a whole lot of Magic, but I ranked up to Mythic, and then I got into Mythic and took a few days off. And the next time I look at my rank, I was at 93% Mythic. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And, that was... It's hard
soul crushing. It was soul crushing.
It's soul crushing, yeah. I'm like, I'm sitting here, like, I'm on this high of like, wow, I understand this deck. I'm doing really well. I'm winning my mirror matches. Like, I'm winning. I'm winning quite a bit with this deck, and I'm very, very happy with my play. But then I see this number on my screen that's just not reflective of that at all to me. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind and just, let that be a perspective for you that, there is ladder play is going to favor you playing more games. It's going to favor win streaks. And it's realistically in a lot of ways going to favor you playing faster decks for the reasons above. That's
You kind of already mentioned it, but I am the type of person that takes magic breaks all the time. It's just like I'm not playing Magic for 3 days, or I'm not playing Magic. Like I'm not playing Magic this weekend, so every time I play Magic, I'm just gonna jump into a draft queue and just enjoy myself, unless I see a deck that I want to play. Like it is okay to not play Magic. It is it is so easy to see Magic Twitter and Magic Facebook groups or Magic Discords and feel like that people have an expectation of you that is not real. Like I hate to break it to everybody, but nobody cares. Nobody cares if you get Mythic or how high rank Mythic you are, other than they want to see you succeed and be happy. Like that's the real truth. It might seem like it's something that you have to do, but the real reason people cheer for you when they do it is because they want to see you succeed and they want to see you be happy. And if you are happy or not playing Magic for a couple days, that is also what they want to see.
Yeah, it's as mentioned before, it's just so important to figure out what works for you. Like, I am constantly impressed by the people who do put up these high mythic finishes, but I also acknowledge they're playing Magic in a different way than I am right now. They have they understand the right decks to take on ladder. They excel at those strategies. They have the time to commit to it. They aren't really phased by like, oh, I'm rank 80 and I got paired against 93% Mythic, and if I lose this, I'm going back to bronze or something.
Well, the other thing is if you think about the volume that those players play, right? Like you talked about how you see somebody who puts in 600 matches every month. It's for what it's worth, that could be extremely low. I have not looked in a while, but like eventually it doesn't matter if they fall 50 ranks in one match or 200 ranks in one match, because they're going to make up for that in volume. And go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think as of within the last year, one of the times, as far as constructed, and that's another thing, limited and constructor are two totally different like things with rank, because it's so much harder against top 1200 constructed just because of the number of people you have competing for that. But I think the like lowest game count or lowest match count that I've had to make top 1200 Mythic was like about 80 matches. So, and that was with a pretty big win streak to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I know that former host of Criticism, John Stern, the first time that he downloaded Arena and just like tried it out, he did some math on how long it took him just logging into the client for the first time to make Mythic, and it was really interesting to like kind of see the numbers on this stuff. So, but don't be afraid to take a break. Any lessons that you learned that you want to? I mean, you kind of talked about one of the bigger ones, I think, already, which is ladder play versus events, and also the differences between constructed and limited. But are there lessons that you've personally taken away from the ladder grind that you want to share?
Yeah, I just going back to the not letting it define you. July 2019 was the first month that I had missed Mythic, and it was kind of, I went to San Diego Comic-Con that year, so I had taken like over a week off of Magic at that point, and I really was not enjoying. We had Standard had the core set rotated, and I really was not enjoying the format all that much. Like, I wanted to play the Elementals deck that everybody else was playing, except for I could not play that deck for some reason. Things were not going the way I needed them to. And finally at the end of the month, things started kind of clicking, but, it was almost just like, between taking the time off and not enjoying myself, when I did have time early in the month to play, I was on the last day and I was, trying to make that push, and I get to my Winnenden and I lose to Grixis, and it's like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm just like, I can't do this. Like I'm not gonna sit here and sacrifice being you know being functional at work tomorrow to try to chase this mythic dream that's actually not going to amount to anything for me this month. Other than saying, hey, I reached mythic again. So I think it's really important to learn to put the meaning of it for you into perspective, and like just you know and again, just going back to it, it doesn't define who you are as a Magic player. Like, it's great to set the goal and get mythic. It's it feels awesome, especially when you hit it for the first time, and it's maybe if it's something you've been working towards, but you know maybe you're just the person that the ladder climb isn't your thing, but you're gonna go kick butt in these SCG events, and you know maybe even qualify for the championships that way.
Or not. You could be like me and just run 50-50 in all of them. So same as my ladder play this month. It's the no. I really agree with everything you just said. I also want to tell a story about the one of the lessons that I think maybe defines my ladder experience a little too much. GP Denver, Elementals was a big deck going into that weekend. Team Elementals, with Omnath and Risen Reef and stuff, and I was crushing it on ladder with that deck. I just was doing very, very well. And I ended up losing to, I think it was Andre Strosky on ladder, and he was playing a Bant Scapeship deck. And I was like, oh man, that deck was hot, and I don't think I could ever beat that. And I wanted to audible, but I was like, well, I am just destroying ladder right now with this teamer deck. I'm just gonna play this. I get to the tournament, and I'm talking to Caroline, and she's like, "Did you see the deck that Alice V and I are playing?" And I was like, "Oh, I saw what Alice V posted to Twitter. Are you playing the same deck?" And I was like, "She's like, yeah." I was like, "Oh, that deck looked super hot." And Caroline actually beat me at that tournament playing the Scapeshift deck, and I was just like, I was like, I hope you win. Like, this deck is so hot. And it's so funny because I wanted to play that deck. It goes on to win the tournament, and I was too focused on individual ladder success than I was, being critical about an individual event.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest lesson that I've learned is, like, just because you have an 80% win percentage with mono red on ladder does not mean that mono red is a deck that you should play at your next tournament.
Yes, for the record, there are very few people who I suggest playing mono red at every single tournament. So.
John Rolfe, Sandy Dog, and is that it? Is that all the people?
I believe Runeclaw Barrack.
Sure. Well, the problem is that Modern exists, so if she wants to play Infect, it was actually really funny. We played a team GP against Emma, Aaron, and it was right before it was. I think it was Jay Dean, and Jay Dean was not on Jund. She was on Burn. She played against me, which was already weird. If we were like, what in the world? And then Emma was on Tron. It was a weird layout, and it was. But of course, Aaron was on Infect. So, but yeah, I agree with that one. Aaron did beat us at an SEG playing mono red. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that those people can do it. But I do think that it's important to note, okay, this is my experience on ladder. However, what do I believe about the format? What do I believe will
Mhm.
show up at this event? And then take the event as an individual entity rather than an extension of your ladder play, because they're different things.
Yeah, and especially if you're anticipating on people like, finding a deck that responds to, what you've been having success with on ladder, that's something that's huge to take into account. So also I do have to point out I am on Team Scapeshift deck. The Elementals deck was the worst thing ever. I
Oh
watched
my
everyone
gosh.
else have success with it. Everyone else, and every single time I tried to play that deck, I could not win with it. I just like wanted to scream.
I lost 3 win-ins for day 2 at that event and was like ready to flip a table. I was like, and it was so funny. I lost a mono red, which in one of my win-ins, which is like an unlosable matchup with that deck. And like I at the end of the game, I was literally just flipping lands off the top of my deck. Like any spell would have won me the game basically. And I'm just like, and everybody watching it was like, that was painful to watch. Because my opponent was had a bunch of 3 drops in their hand and was mana screwed too. So it was like, it was horrible. It was horrible. However,
Mhm.
that skip shift deck was sweet, and I was happy that people did well with it.
It was. That turned my life around. In that phase of Magic, that deck did.
That is going to do it for this week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We will be launching our Patreon again soon. Fun fact: I got laid off from my job, so I got nothing but time for this Magic stuff right now. So we'll put that together. If you have a suggestion that you want for either a reward tier or things that other patrons do or other Discords do that are really great for you, please shoot us an email or post it in our Discord. The email is mtgmythicast@gmail.com. It's really appreciated when people who want to participate in that give us the things that they like. I found that has been the most successful when we did that for CCMTG, and I'm happy to do it here. Mikaela, happy birthday. I feel
Thank
really,
you.
really bad for you. I did not realize. I was watching your stream. I didn't even notice you were in a different place. Did you have a
Yeah.
green screen up?
No.
I just
I
am the
did.
worst.
So cardboard cutout Tom Locke was in the room with me.
Oh.
However, I had to move him because I went to go to bed that night, and like I could feel someone watching me. And I'm like, okay, I
And you
can't
couldn't
sleep like
stand your
this.
husband watching you? Sure.
I'm like, I can't sleep like this. I had to move it.
Well, man, COVID Thanksgiving was already bad enough. I can't imagine what it was like. Did he bring you dinner? Like, what happened?
So my mom brought over Thanksgiving food on Thanksgiving, and then my parents brought over some cupcakes, and I had cupcakes delivered to outside this extra bedroom door. So that's been our food delivery. There's just like food appearing outside my door.
Nice. To be fair, that happened to Harry Potter too. So
Oh, true. So yeah, I had a cupcake, which it's like my first like, you know, I've been like dieting, so it was actually like kind of nice to
Sure.
have something a little different. The diet's actually kind of just been like out the door for a few days, but
Sure.
we're gonna get back on track. So.
Well, if people want to watch your stream, whether it's Stardew Valley or MTG, where can they do that?
Yeah, it's I'm on Twitch at Mythic Mikaela. It's lots of Magic, lots of limited is what we play, but every once in a while we change it up.
You can find me at Spencer13H on Twitter. You can find my YouTube content over on the Heezy Game Media YouTube channel, as well as here on the Constructive Criticism YouTube channel. I do plan on starting up weekly YouTube videos again, and I'm really excited for that. You can find the podcast at Arena Mythic Cat, or wait, no. Is it Arena Mythic? I don't even remember our Twitter off the top of my head right now. What's our Twitter? Mikaela, help!
I don't have Twitter open.
I'm pretty sure it's at Arena Mythic Cast. And if you tweet at us when you hit Mythic, we'll obviously give you that retweet, but also we'll be looking at those to try and help us find our Mythic guests for future episodes, and it's really appreciated. So, thank you everybody so much for listening. Mikaela, let's both get better for next week's episode.
Yes.
And we'll see everybody next week with another episode of Arena Mythic Cast.